is running.
Okay.
So Jess, if you could start and then let us know. Yeah, we've started. So Tina, over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello everybody, welcome to the Epsom Ewell Local Committee meeting. I hope you can all hear me. I'm ever so sorry, but I've got an awful lot of things to read out before we can start the meeting. So in line with government guidance, this meeting will not be held in public for social distancing reasons, but we're allowed to hold the meeting remotely, and this meeting is available for public viewing via the County Council's webcasting system. I'd like to remind all participants that you have had rules around how this meeting will be run, and please abide by those. Please remember to turn off your camera and mute your microphone unless you're speaking. It'd be more difficult to manage digitally than in person. I hope the internet connections hold up. In the case that my internet connection runs out, we may have a problem because Jan is joining the meeting via her telephone, so we might have to nominate somebody else to carry on with the meeting until I get reconnected, but it shouldn't happen. Before we start, I'll introduce the officers and members of the committee at this meeting. First of all, we have Nicola Morris, who's Partnership Committee Officer, without whom we could not function. We have Joe Long, Partnership Lead. Rowena Zelli, Support Officer. Jess Edmondson, PCO, not in the meeting but broadcasting the webcast from County Hall, and she will help us run the meeting as smoothly as possible. For specific items, we have Stephen Clavey, who's to do parking, and Nick Healy, who's done the St Joseph's feasibility study. I'll read out the members of the committee now, and when I introduce you, please indicate that you're present, a bit like being at school really, so that we have confirmation of who is online for this meeting. Right, so we start off with the county councillors. So we've got Councillor Eva Kingston.
I'm present.
Thank you. County Councillor Jan Mason.
Present.
County Councillor John Beckett. John?
Sorry, I had a few technical problems. Present.
Okay. And County Councillor Ben Muir.
Present.
Lovely. From Epsom and Ewell Borough Council, the appointed councillors are, and I say appointed because I don't know yet whether any can't come. We have Councillor Steve Bridger, Councillor Alex Coley, Councillor Nigel Collin, Councillor Neil Dallen, and Councillor Debbie Monksfield. Now, if we have to have substitutes, we've got Councillor Arthur Abdulin, Councillor Kate Chin, Councillor Chris Frost, Councillor Stephen McCormick, and Councillor Phil Neal. In terms of voting on items at this meeting, at the end of the discussion on each item, I will ask committee members if they are in support of the recommendations. I will assume members are in support of the recommendations unless you indicate otherwise or have indicated on the chat function that you are not in support of the recommendation, and there will be plenty of time for you to do this. If a formal vote is required, I or the Partnership Committee Officer, Nicola, will read out your names and you will be asked to indicate verbally for or against the recommendation. I advise all members to use the chat box to indicate at any point if you wish to speak, or use the raise your hand button. Jan, we know that you will be calling out because you don't have either of these buttons.
Thank you.
It will be noted by either myself or the committee manager that you wish to speak, and she will reply with email. It is a legal requirement that the decision making is able to be viewed live by members. So if at any point the webcast fails, the meeting will have to adjourn until such time as the connection can be re-established. I hope that's all been quite clear. Right, I just have to notify you that I was duly elected as chairman of this committee, and Councillor Jan Mason is vice chairman. Right, we've got the substitute members nominated by the Borough Council. We need to agree to permit substitutes for the coming year. Could you, well, if I don't hear anything, then I'll assume that everybody accepts that. Yep.
Yep.
Good. Nicola, do we have any apologies for absence, please?
No apologies.
So we have the committee as it stands. There's no substitutes.
No, I've not been notified of any substitutes, and I think everybody's here.
Right, now, number 4 of the agenda, declarations of interest. All members present are required to declare at this point in the meeting, or as soon as possible thereafter, any disclosable pecuniary interest and or other interests arising under the Code of Conduct in respect of any item of business being considered at this meeting.
I have a declaration of interest.
Then what I will ask you to do, Councillor Muir, is when we are discussing anything to do with the Belia Green, you will, I know it's difficult for you actually to leave it when you're on a computer, but you will not be able to speak, and you will not be visible. I hope that's acceptable to you.
I will be leaving the meeting and then invited back.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, Chairman's business. I've only really got 2 things to talk about. I'm sure you'll be very pleased to know that with the recent chaos that there's been at the recycling centre, it is being, by the end of this month, we should have a booking system. It will mean that people can only have so many slots per month or per week, but that way we won't have the congestion that has been happening around Blenheim just lately. And the other piece of interest is that West Street and Waterloo Road, I'm sure many people have noticed that we have barriers around. This is in line with social distancing, and to enable people to cross the road. At that point, the pavement is very, very narrow. It's going to be there for 3 months. If anybody has any comments about it, good or bad, they're very welcome to let the county, myself or their local councillor know, because we need to know whether it's going to work or not. So please do feel free at any time to contact us over that. Can I also ask the committee, we've just had an informal meeting, and we're supposed to be having another informal meeting on the 14th of October. Would members be agreeable to cancelling the meeting or postponing it to a later date? If members wish to hold an informal meeting, they will need to notify the chairman and committee manager of any items they wish to discuss. The committee could also consider a wider public engagement event on a matter of interest to residents. So could I have a vote? Do we all agree with just postponing it?
Agreed.
Yeah, Councillor Dallin has a question.
Thank you, Chair. It's actually about the previous thing you were talking about. You mentioned West Street and Waterloo Road.
Yeah.
With barriers. Did you mean High Street and Waterloo Road?
I did. I'm so sorry. Yes, you're quite right. So it's at the crossroads in the middle of the high street. It's so that you can come around the corner without bumping into people, which of course we don't want with social distancing. So thank you. So do we all agree then that we will postpone the meeting? I'm very happy to have a meeting, even if it's just before the next full meeting, when we might have things to discuss. But I think next week's a bit soon.
Chairman, Councillor Kington would like to speak.
Okay, sorry, I haven't got that. Councillor Kington, what would you like to say?
Yeah, I wonder whether, in fact, because this has sprung upon us, and I don't mean that in a derogatory or rude way, can we have time to reflect on whether we want to cancel and get back to you on this, say, within the next 48 hours? My thinking is that you mentioned a public engagement, and there may be something that we might want to do, but to make an instant decision, having been told that there is this proposal. So could I ask that actually you ask us to get back to in 48 hours, and if there is no objection, then it is cancelled. Thank you.
Yes, that's quite acceptable. Do we all agree on that?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Councillor Kingston, could you remove your hand now, please? Because we won't know whether you want to speak or not. All right, we all agree on that then. Thank you. Right, now we have written public questions. And we have 4 written public questions. The first one is about school streets. There are 2 people actually, somebody who doesn't want their name put forward, and Dirk, oh dear, I'm going to say Oosthoek. I hope that's correct. I'm sorry if it's not. Do you wish to ask a supplementary question?
Is that me?
Is that Dirk Oosthoek? No? It's regarding
Chairman, it's the anonymous person. Dirk was probably going to be absent from the meeting, but he's sent in some supplementary questions which we can answer in writing.
Oh, right, okay. There's nothing that we need to answer at this precise moment then?
The person listed as anonymous has got a supplementary question, I believe.
That's right, yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Before you make the decision about the relaxation of parking on Aberley Green, can you consider 2 points, please? The first one is that Aberley Green provides clean air to White Horse Drive, the church, the school, and to Rosebank. And it would be a good idea to protect our open spaces, not to pollute and poison. The second point is that there are only 2 schools in the borough that do not have a nearest school admissions policy.
I'm really so sorry, but this is not to do with school streets, is it?
It's absolutely to do with school streets, Chair.
Okay, sorry, carry on then.
There are only 2 schools in the borough that do not have a nearest school admissions policy, and St Joseph's is one of them. Everybody at the meeting here has received an email where there is a very important document that is dated July 2020, and that concerns travel after COVID, particularly educational travel. And it's interesting to note that the expertise that was derived for that publication emanates from Atkins, which is across the road from Epsom Town Hall. That's the end of my question. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure how we answer that.
What I would like you to do is, before you make the decision about the relaxation of the...
You want us to remember that?
I want you to consider those 2 points. Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Duly noted. Councillor Dallin, was your light flashing again? I don't think we're in discussion now, are we?
Chairman, Nick Healy would like to say something.
Oh, yes, please, Nick. Thank you.
I need to say, Chairman, that if you would like me to, I can respond to the supplementary comments from, if you would like me to. It's up to you.
Yes, please. That would be very kind.
Okay, doke. So taking them in order then, the first question to do with the Aberley Green being an open space. Yes, it is a privately owned open space. And we can certainly appreciate that the residents would want to do whatever they can to preserve the environment in there. Whether or not the net benefit for the environment is positive or negative very much depends on whether the provision of parking in this place or not increases or decreases the total number of parents driving to school. Now, of course, we have no control over this, parents are free. It is a free country, and parents are free to make their own decisions, and we know that they do frequently, and they'll choose according to their perceived convenience. So whatever we may wish to encourage or discourage, if the total number of people being driven to school remains the same, then the pollution will appear somewhere in that neighbourhood. And so I think it is perhaps a little artificial to say that by not providing parking in Abelia Green means that there will be a net reduction in pollution. It'll just be somewhere else in the area. If, on the other hand, committee accepts the argument that by not providing parking in Abelia Green, that will discourage parents from driving to school and result in a net decrease in car-borne journeys to school, then arguable that there may be a net reduction in pollution in the area. So in response to the nearest schools admissions policy, committee will of course understand that this is not a matter for the local committee, but each school is entitled to set its own admissions policy subject to the various regulations that are around that. And so that's not something that the local committee has any influence over. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Move on to question 2, Chris Rice. Is he here, Nicola?
No, I don't think he was able to attend.
Right, okay, so there's no question there then. The question 3 is Debbie Heffernan. Are you satisfied with your answer, or is she not here?
Yes, Debbie should be here.
Are you satisfied with your answer, or would you like to ask a supplementary question?
I'd like to ask a supplementary question, please.
Please go ahead then.
The officer states that the councillor who's resident in the area, and I believe that committee member has left this meeting.
Yes.
Has not been present at any meetings or involved in any discussions relating to parking proposals in this area.
Yes.
So why is it when I visited the Conservative office in Barnet Wood Lane and spoke to the administration team there to ask for an appointment with Mr. Graining, was I advised to contact Surrey County Councillor Bernie Muir with regards to do anything to do with parking in Whitehorse Drive?
I imagine that was a mistake on behalf of the party office, because I'm your local county councillor, of which you are aware, and it's me.
Absolutely.
And I saw you.
I did actually state that, councillor. I did say, well, surely Tina Mountain is, and it's nothing to do with Epsom. Contact Bernie Muir. So I just wanted that statement out there, that there is a perception that Surrey County Councillor Bernie Muir is actually involved in any discussions relating to parking in this area.
Not at all. As chairman and your local county councillor, it is only me who's involved with the parking in this area. It is known, I believe, that Councillor Bernie Muir lives on Abelia Green, but she has not participated in any meetings with the residents of Abelia Green. And I won't say that we haven't talked about it in passing, but it really has been in passing. We have not discussed it as such, because she realises that she has to be at arm's length. And I do want to assure you that any decision that will be taken today, to be quite honest with you, I'm totally outnumbered anyway as your county councillor. So whatever decision is taken, I'm impartial, and I believe all the other councillors on this committee are impartial. I hope that has put your mind at rest.
Thank you.
Vicky Watson, question 4, and there's also Keith and Tracy Whittington. Do you wish to, are they here, or would they like to ask another question?
Chairman, I don't think any of those people are present in the meeting currently.
Oh, that's good. That's done then, isn't it? Well, that's the 4 questions that we were asked to consider now on the agenda.
I do have another question, councillor. Sorry, I should put my hand up.
Who is that, please? Is that Mrs. Heffernan?
Yes, Debbie.
Oh, okay.
Just If my colleagues are unable to attend this session, it's relating to the officer stating that the Surrey County Council has advertised proposals to amend parking restrictions on 2 occasions. And my recollection is it's been since September 2018 that there have been Surrey County Council local committee meetings relating to this parking issue, as well as understanding how it was advertised, because certainly when Drawing 70 was submitted in a meeting of the 9th of December 2019, not one resident in the area affected knew about it. So I guess the question here is, please may the officer clarify the 2 occasions Surrey County Council advertised proposals. My understanding is it's more than that. And how were they advertised?
Could I ask Stephen Clavey to respond to that, or would you like to respond in writing?
I can give you a brief response. I can't give you the exact date when the proposals were previously advertised. Nick may be able to help me out with this one. We did advertise a very similar proposal, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And that's when the query over the access to the church and the school arose. And as a consequence, we didn't progress that proposal any further. And this one that's been advertised recently is the second time that we've advertised some proposals.
How was it advertised?
What, this time round or the previous time?
Yeah, both. What process do you adopt to advertise to let the local community?
I'm so sorry, I know it's a pain in the bottom, but could you please come through the chair when you want to ask a question like that? Stephen, how did you advertise? Was it in the local paper as we normally do?
Yeah, I mean, statutorily, we have to advertise in the local press. The previous advert that we did would have been the Sutton and Epsom Guardian. Obviously, this time round, I think it's changed to the Epsom Comet. So we have to put a notice in the paper, that's statutory. We also put up street notices. So if there's any available lamp columns in the area, we put notices on those. And depending on whether we feel it is necessary, we can also send letters or flyers to residents. The minimum requirement is the notice in the newspaper. So anything we do over and above that is additional, isn't necessarily required under statute.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm afraid that's the end of public questions now. We have petitions. There aren't any, so we'll quickly move on from that. Then I have to ask, can the committee, have you can you agree the minutes of the previous meeting? I know it was a long time ago, but COVID stepped in. So is there anything that you wish to discuss on the accuracy only of these minutes? Okay, the minutes are therefore agreed. And how do I sign? Oh, goodness, we've got a flashing light. How do I sign these, Nicola?
Well, I'll have to look into that. We may have to send them to you and you can send them back. Okay, lovely. Thank you. Number 9, member question time. And there was one question received by Councillor Neil Dallen. Do you wish to ask a supplementary question on the response?
No, thank you. Just thank the officer for the comprehensive response. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. Now, is this right? We now go on to the Epsom number 10, Epsom Ewell parking review. Relating to the feedback, I have to tell our guests that you can no longer speak. We are into discussion time now. Stephen Clavey, could you please introduce this?
Yeah. As probably most of you are aware, we advertised a full Epsom Ewell parking review starting the 7th of November and carrying on for a period of 28 days. During that time, we invited residents and other interested parties to agree or object to the proposals. We are aware that there's some controversy or heated discussions to be had over this particular part of that parking review, and it was subsequently decided that we would actually bring the results of the advertising back to a formal committee so that the decision could be made in a public forum.
Thank you. Now, this is going to be, I know, for some people quite contentious. So please just respect everybody's views. May I ask you to do that? I've got a flashing light, Nicola, on a number 9325. Is that Jan?
It's not. Just picking up sound from the phone.
Right. Sorry. Right. Okay. Would anybody like to discuss this parking review? Has anybody got anything to say?
No.
Who's speaking?
Councillor Kington would like to speak.
Sorry, Councillor Kington, would you like to speak? Are you there, Eva?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I want to comment on how we've reached the situation in looking at these two parking decisions in Whitehorse Drive and St Margaret's Drive and St Elizabeth Drive, because we might be in danger of missing the focal point of the local committee's concern. And the focal point is Rosebank and the adjacent roads, where school-related traffic is not only blighting the lives of residents who live there, but also endangering the safety of children of local residents as they walk to school. The local committee, when it was discussing the parking changes, was faced with evidence before it of a very real problem. And they took the view that a solution was probably going to be multifaceted, and it was certainly going to involve all those who could make a difference or had a voice that needed to be heard. We felt the school should look at its travel plan. The parents should look at their travel plans, including Ride and Stride. Surrey County Council could make a contribution to their Safer Schools programmes, and the local committee, through its ability or not to fund the design and physical changes to the highway, could also make a difference, as could perhaps parking restrictions in the area and changes to those. So a review including all of those actions was supported by many, opposed by some, but a majority on this local committee in September 2019 felt it had a duty to listen to all residents, those who live in Rosebank, those who live in Whitehorse Drive and the wider area, and parents of local children attending these schools. No single set of residents should be excluded from making their voice heard. Neither should any set of residents seek to silence others. Now, 1 year on, if we look at what has happened, Madam Chairman, it makes interesting reading. For example, St Joseph's School travel plan says there's already been changes to the start of the school day for years R and 1 in October 2018. In December 2018, the early access to classroom was provided for years 2 and 3. In January of this year, early access to classrooms for the rest of the school enabled St Joseph's School to report that, and I quote, "There is now very little congestion on Rosebank due to the changes we have made." Also in January 2020, St Joseph's School undertook an after-school club survey, which showed that typically about 40% of all children stay on till 4 o'clock. This provision ensures a staggered departure on Rosebank, thereby again reducing congestion. And the officer report we have before us in item 11 says, and I quote, "The morning arrival time for Rosebery and St Joseph students are staggered. This means that all Rosebery students are in before any St Joseph's start to arrive. It must be noted that both schools have made impressive efforts to encourage children to travel to school sustainably, with a wide proportion of children and parents walking to schools." That said, there was one note of caution in the report which states that, quote, "St Joseph's serves a wide catchment area, meaning cars are the only transport option available for travel for some parents." Despite that, it is quite clear that the school has been doing its part and workable solutions have been made to some of the issues in Rosebank. Madam Chairman, I now turn to the part that can be played by the local committee through funded changes to the highway. Whilst I don't want to preempt that debate, which is next, our decisions taken on these parking issues will inevitably be influenced by what physical changes, if any, we support. One option, number 3, in the report is described as the only workable solution to the main safety issue recorded in the road safety outside school audits. By creating a lay-by for the parked cars, the carriageway width will enable two-way traffic at this section. That option has become available because the grass area behind the existing footway is Epsom Ewell Borough Council land, and borough councillors of the Strategy and Resources Committee, which I chair, have supported and approved the release of this land for this purpose. I'm pleased that the Borough Council has acted to make this option available. Of course, funding of any of these options will remain an issue, and some are expensive, but if supported under item 11, the Surrey County Council Division member might consider the use of their highway allocation to fund it. So, Madam Chairman, we also now have within our power to make highway or footway contributions to the safety of children going to school. And having considered those factors, I want to comment on the parking proposals themselves and the outcome of the consultation. What is clear from the figures, the analysis of the figures, is that the advertised parking restriction change in Whitehorse Drive, as proposed by the chairman, has virtually no support, which, to be honest, comes as no surprise. I don't know why it was ever proposed. I did not support them at the time and will not support their implementation now. However, the parking restriction proposals for St Margaret's Drive and St Elizabeth's Drive has 92% support, 279 positive responses, which is a significant figure. However, parking consultations are not referendums where a majority wins, but equally that significant support cannot just be dismissed as not valid. I personally have received many representations on these proposals on both sides of the argument. I've had telephone conversations and before lockdown, face-to-face meetings. Many of the arguments against enabling parking for Park and Stride in St Margaret's Drive and St Elizabeth's Drive have been well thought through, carefully argued, and in some cases compelling. For example, will these proposals encourage driving when we should be looking at more sustainable forms of transport? And are they addressing the issues of Rosebank or merely sharing the problem without tackling them? However, I've also received comments that suggest that enabling a few parked cars twice a day in these roads will prevent emergency vehicles accessing properties, leading to residents dying, or will trap people in their homes, leading to loneliness. It is sad that such comments are made, even sadder that people should propagate them. As councillors, we have to listen to the arguments, sift out those that are clearly not valid, weigh them up against the benefits to those most affected by a problem, and in this case, the residents of Rosebank and our local children travelling in a variety of ways to school. And this is why we are here today. Madam Chairman, I started by saying that the original local committee decision to look at parking options was to enable us to assess the variety of options to resolve the school run based problem. It's taken longer than we thought to bring about those solutions, another meeting. However, we have them now, and it is my view that, firstly, the school has played its part in establishing a new access in Whitehorse Drive and staggering the school day for its pupils and reducing congestion. Secondly, the local committee has before it a series of options to address the main safety issues in Rosebank, which we can now consider. Thirdly, the Whitehorse Drive parking proposals have no support and little validity, and we should not support them. And fourthly, given the factors now before us and the strong arguments put by many about encouraging alternatives to car travel at this time, we should not support a change to the current parking arrangements in St Margaret's Drive and St Elizabeth Drive, and that is how I intend to vote. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that speech. Just to let you know why I introduced Whitehorse Drive, I will be asking, I know that I've got Councillor Coley and Councillor Collin waiting to speak, but I introduced the proposal of parking because my interest is, and I am totally unbiased compared, I know that you don't all think I am, but for me it's the safety of the children. And I cannot in conscience as the local county council see how parking on Abelia Green, walking children along Dorking Road through all the pollution, up Whitehorse Drive where they have to, contrary to the travel plan, they have two roads to cross. And whilst I realise they're only little sub-roads, little cul-de-sacs, parents park in there waiting for their children to come out of Rosebery and then obviously shoot out. So they have two roads. It's also nearly half an hour's walk. I know I'm a bit slow, but it took me half an hour. I hope all councillors have actually taken this walk from Abelia Green to the school, because for me it's just, you get little tiddlers, it's too long. You can't ever let them walk freely, certainly not along the Dorking Road, because you've only got to have one little movement and there will be problems. So I will speak again later as the local councillor, but I felt in honesty and in all conscience that Whitehorse Drive, the children should be dropped there, would be the safest way. And with regard to Rosebank, I gave my entire highways budget this year to Gavin so that he could improve the pavements to encourage children to both cycle and walk to school. So if you like, I have put my money where my mouth is. I shall stop speaking now, and Councillor Collins, is it you who was next for speaking?
Thank you, Chair. I would like to declare at the outset that I've been inundated with a lot of emails and representations in respect of this particular proposal. They haven't affected me. I'm coming to this with an open mind. I've listened with great interest to what Councillor Kington has had to say. The position that I've also got is that we need to take into account climate change and the impact of road use as opposed to pedestrian use on our environment as a whole. So I, for one, having listened to Councillor Kington, fully endorse what he said, and I will be voting accordingly. Thank you.
Councillor Coley, you wanted to say something, I believe.
Thanks, Chair. Just getting the microphone control underway. Can you hear me all right?
We can, thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. I've had a lot of representations on this topic. I am new to the local committee, so I am having to catch up with what sounds like several years of history. I find it a bit of a muddle, if I'm honest. It doesn't seem to be very clear. And I think what worries me is when I'm looking through the PDFs that are on the Surrey County Council website, I'm looking at representations from parents who live where I grew up, opposite Warren Mead Primary School, or live literally at my nearest neighbours right now by Daintree Primary School. They live within seconds walking distance of two really good primary schools that have spaces. And so I'm really struggling to understand what the desperate need is to to go to a school so far away that they can only travel to by car. Ironically, I am a baptised Catholic, so I could have gone to the school, but my kids aren't, so they couldn't, even though they live quite near. I find the whole thing a complete muddle, if I'm honest with you. And I have to say, when I'm reading residents' concerns, and I am driven by what residents say, they cannot understand why this council would make special arrangements for children who are coming from so far away, sometimes much, much further away, and causing such difficulties for people who live right next to the school. And I just can't seem to get to the bottom of this. Chair, I know that you brought this yourself. I know you're the divisional member, but I'm afraid I'm just not clear on what we're trying to achieve here. To me, it doesn't look like something that we should be pursuing. Thanks a lot.
Councillor Coley, I did not bring forward the parking in Abelia Green. I brought forward the parking in White Horse Drive because of the councillors who brought forward the parking on Abelia Green, because I, as I've said before, in all conscience, I believe it is verging on dangerous for children to walk from Abelia Green to the school. It's a long journey, and I felt if we were going to make any changes, then the changes should be in White Horse Drive. But as with all of you, I can't tell you how many emails, petitions, goodness knows what, I've had both from Abelia Green and from White Horse Drive. The reason there's so many people in favour of the changes in Abelia Green is they're predominantly parents, and some, if you looked at the list, which I did, I mean, they're from as far away as Guildford. I mean, I do not believe that children are coming from Guildford. My sister-in-law is Catholic. Her daughter went to St Anne's School in Banstead, which I'm told is an excellent school. So I agree totally that, you know, I absolutely agree with parental choice because of religion, if that's what is the law. But I don't believe local residents should be made to pay that price. So, as you can imagine, I will be voting against any changes to parking, but I've already tried to improve the journey of children to St Joseph's by having all the as much as my money will allow, pavements, and having seen the list, I'm quite happy to commit whatever money is necessary of next year's money to do any of the work that is needed to improve the journey for children, in particular the turning at the end of White Horse Drive, but we will come to that later on. I'm so sorry, I don't have a list of anybody else who wants to speak. So does anybody?
Chairman Neil Dallin would like to speak.
Thank you. Neil, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Chair. A lot of what I was going to say has been said by Councillor Kington, so I'm not going to repeat it. My one concern at the moment is that I think we should be deciding item 11, St Joseph's School feasibility report, before we decide on part of this item. Is that possible to do?
I agree completely. It was really difficult when we were trying to sort out the agenda, you know, whether we put the chicken before the egg. You know, it was very difficult. So if everybody agrees, I'm quite happy to hear the feasibility report from Nick Healy, and then we'll take the decision afterwards. Does anybody object to us doing that?
No.
No? Good. Okay. No. Shall we move on to item 11, which is the feasibility report? Nick, would you like to talk us through it, or does the committee want to go through it page by page? I'm sure we've all read it, but perhaps Nick could just talk us through it.
Thank you very much. Just as a very practical point to my colleagues in the Partnership Office, have you included the feasibility report as part of your presentation?
We have some of it. We've got the plans, but not the whole report.
Okay, in which case, if you are able to put up the first plan, I'd be very grateful. Thank you very much. So what we did on the instruction of committee, is we first of all undertook a number of road safety outside schools audit visits. These are visits accompanied by Surrey Police, our road, and also representatives from our own road safety team. And we looked at Rosebank and we looked at Whitehorse Drive during the morning and evening peak. We reported those audits last year, and in response to that, committee asked me to commission a feasibility study to look at options for improving facilities both in Rosebank and in Whitehorse Drive for pedestrians, for cyclists, and for motorists. So, if I could ask for the next slide, please. So this is the situation a bit more zoomed in. I'm sure that the local members and the local community obviously are very familiar with this, but just so that other members of the committee are aware, St Joseph's School has two routes of access via public rights of way. One is via Rosebank, and the vehicular access is to Rosebank, and the other is via Whitehorse Drive. And that is because between Rosebank and Whitehorse Drive is a town path called the Cabbage Patch. I have no idea why it's called that, don't ask me please. And that joins Rosebank and Whitehorse Drive, and partway along the Cabbage Patch, the school have constructed a new access gate so that children approaching from Whitehorse Drive can get straight into the school grounds without having to go all the way to Rosebank and then double back on themselves. So,
could I just interrupt you here? Just on that plan, you'll see that it's Rosebank School, but in fact, of course, it's Rosebery School, just for people who aren't local to my immediate area. So I'm just pointing that out on page 128.
Okay. Thank you for that, Tina. Can I have the next slide, please? So I'm going to talk you through some of the options. So among the options is a number of improvements we could do solely for pedestrians, and this is a collection of just that kind of thing. So at the top left of your screen, there's an arrow B pointing to the pedestrian access route into the school. At the moment, that is very narrow, and so it is actually quite impossible for two family groups with pushchairs to pass each other. So a very simple improvement would be to widen that pedestrian access. The crossing points over the entry and exit, the vehicular entry and exits, are highlighted with the letter A and arrows. These could be improved to assist with people who are less able, and also, of course, family groups with pushchairs. At the moment, those drop crossings, they are there, but they're not brilliant, and they could certainly be improved. Further down the road outside Meadow Court, there are no dropped crossings at all currently outside in the bell mouth of Meadow Court. And so, although an able-bodied person wouldn't find this difficult, family groups and, again, less able pedestrians would find this quite a barrier. And so we can introduce drop curbs with tactile paving, and that suits everybody then in terms of accessibility. This improvement touches on the comment that Eba made earlier about the Epsom and Ewell Borough Council land. The highway stops at the rear edge of the existing pavement in Rosebank. So all of the grass between the back of the pavement and the school fence belongs to Epsom and Ewell Borough Council. And we are very grateful to be able to work in partnership with Epsom and Ewell Borough Council to see if we can use some of this land for the benefit of the local community. And the improvement at B, the widening of the pedestrian access route, would need a slither of that land. So can I have the next slide, please? This is one of two improvements that we can make from a vehicular traffic point of view. By, again, using some of the land owned by Epsom and Ewell Borough Council, we can take the existing parking offline and into laybys. What this does is it means that the top end of Rosebank, as you approach the school, becomes a two-way road. At the moment, it is a two-way road, but it's reduced to single file past a number of parking bays. And that single file section causes considerable congestion in the afternoon. Now, this is partly of the school's own making because of the way that they run a circular drop-off route. And so parents, unfortunately, are encouraged to enter the school grounds and then move forwards to the exit in their cars, but they're not allowed to stop and wait. And so what parents then do is they circulate from Rosebank into the school parking area and then out onto Rosebank again. And what gradually happens during the course of an afternoon is that a circular queue forms, which just moves around in caterpillar fashion, filling up all that space. Then when other vehicles approach up Rosebank, they then cannot get into that circular queue. And so it forms a blockage in the single file section. And then, of course, once a parent is able to pick up their child from the school, they can't then escape because the single file section is blocked. So this, when we did our road safety auditing, this was the only safety concern that we identified. There are plenty of things that would be desirable to do, but this was the only one that made us wince and thought, ooh, that's not great. However, if committee is so minded, then we can take the parking offline, and although it wouldn't discourage the school, in fact it would probably encourage the school to continue running the drop-off and pick-up in the way that they do, it would at least mean that vehicles can escape down the hill once they've picked up their child or once they've dropped off their child. Could I have the next slide, please? This option goes together with the previous option and again takes the on-street parking offline into a lay-by, and the two really go together. They are the most expensive options because it requires construction of a couple of lay-bys, and they are there, and it's all the details are in the report for committee to take a view on. Could I have the next slide, please? This is the cycle improvement. At the moment, the Cabbage Patch is a designated cycle route, but at the Rosebank end, where it exits onto Dalmany Way, there is no dropped curb for cyclists to gain access. So this is a very simple dropped curb to assist with that, cheap and cheerful. Could I have the next slide, please? There are a number of options for the end of Whitehorse Drive. So currently there is no footway, no pavement around the Bellmouth at the end of Whitehorse Drive. And so students and parents who walk up on the left-hand side of the road, as you look at it on your screen, get to the end of the pavement, and then they tend to cross diagonally to get to the Cabbage Patch. And so that is then in conflict with vehicles that are trying to enter the turning area and turn around and get out again. And so although there haven't been any incidents, there is a clear nervousness within the local community that there could be one. So there's a number of options here. This is perhaps the best option from a technical point of view, but also the most expensive. And this is to construct a new pavement all the way around the perimeter of the Bellmouth. And if I could have the next slide, please. Thank you very much. There's a couple of other options to assist pedestrians crossing at the entrance to the turning area. From our point of view, we wouldn't recommend these options, although they are cheaper, because we would expect that rather than using the pedestrian crossing point here, pedestrians are still quite likely to cut diagonally across the turning area. It is quite available to cross the road now under the current circumstances, but people don't do that now. So we don't feel that providing these pedestrian crossing facilities would persuade them to do so. So that, I think, is all the options. Do you want to run to the next slide just in case? Aha, yes. So this is brilliant. So we would recommend, as officers, prioritising options 2, 5 and 6. And these options are the pedestrian and the cycle improvements. I've given the total cost there, and that would have to be funded by the local committee. As officers, we are not recommending the option to take the cars offline, the on-street parking offline into lay-bys, because from a policy point of view, that would be contrary to our objectives of encouraging people to walk and cycle to school in preference to driving. What we tend to find is that wherever we make it easier for somebody to drive to school, and I appreciate that not everybody buys this argument, but wherever we make it easier for somebody to drive to school, it simply fuels the demand for people to drive to school. If we make it more difficult for people to drive to school, it tends to discourage them from driving to school. And so you're more likely that way around to get a sustainable outcome. So, Chairman, thank you very much. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. That was very clear. Does anybody have any questions? No? I haven't been given anybody one question.
Sorry, Chair, my hand doesn't seem to be working. It's Councillor Dallon.
Yes, please ask, Neil.
Quick question. If I understand correctly, Nick is recommending that we don't carry forward option 3, which is the moving of the disabled parking spaces into the pavement.
Yes, I think that's
If that is correct, have they looked at moving those disabled spaces elsewhere? Because that does cause a blockage and is one of the main issues up there.
Tina, would you like me to respond to that?
Yes, please. Would you respond? Thank you.
The point is, Neil, that we wouldn't want to make that into we wouldn't want to remove the single file section because we feel, and it is an open debate, but as officers we feel that would run contrary to the agreed objectives of both our own council and Epsom and Ewell Borough Council to combat climate change in some way, and so we don't want to recommend an option that we feel would encourage people to drive. So if you removed that blockage, Neil, it would make it a lot easier for people to drive to and from the school and thereby encourage more people to drive to and from the school, which is contrary to the sustainable outcome that we're all looking for, supposedly.
Thank you. Is that okay, Neil? You're quite happy? Councillor Dallon?
Yes, I understand. I'm not sure I agree, but that's a separate debate. Thank you.
Councillor Collins, I think you would like to speak. Hi, John.
Yes, I'd like to ask the officer, if I may. I know we're not going to do it, but were we to do it using the council Epsom's land, you seem to have got no more than 2 cars in that lay-by. And if I'm right in that assumption, how on earth do you think that lay-by with 2 cars would accommodate for the congestion that we see? Thank you.
Tina, would you like me to respond to that?
Yeah. Oh, yes, please. Thank you. Yes, please.
So the idea is that the current parking is on street and reduces that immediate approach to the school to single file. If we can move that parking into a lay-by, the residents are put at no disadvantage because they still have the same parking that they would have done anyway. But we're opening out the single file section into a 2-way section, and so it more easily enables drivers to escape from the school once they've either picked up or dropped off their children. At the moment, there's a lot of congestion around that single file section.
May I come back, Chair? So, forgive me if I misunderstood this then. So what you're saying is, where the proposed lay-by that we're not going to do would have been, it actually removes single file and makes it double. So it just, all you needed was a lay-by for 2 cars. Is that right?
Chairman, would it help if I showed committee what the situation is like on site, which I can do with the power of technology?
Yes, please. That would be very kind.
Okay, here we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen in just a second. So hopefully everybody will be able to see what I am looking at. So here we go. We're going to test the technology, everybody. So if somebody could tell me when my screen pops up, I'd be very grateful.
Not yet.
Your hand at the moment.
Do we have to get rid of the...
Nick, you might need to request control from me.
Rowena, can I have control, please?
No, there should be a button. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, it's there now.
Is it there now? Jolly good.
Yeah, well done.
So what you can see on your screen here, if I just swing around, hopefully this won't make anybody feel seasick. This is the school. And what the school does is they use this entrance.
We still haven't got your screen.
Oh.
We've got RZ.
Hang on.
I've got it on mine.
Got it on mine.
Yeah, it might just need a minute to catch up.
Yeah, I've got it.
Just
Or
you,
it might depend on what devices you're using. iPads sometimes have a problem depending on how you share the screen.
I've got an iPad, but I'm happy I understand it anyway, so go ahead, Nick.
Okay, no, that's fine. So for those of you who aren't so familiar, at the top end up here, this is the end. This is what the school uses the entrance to their circulatory pick-up and drop-off system. So drivers are encouraged in at the in, and then they drive through the school car park and come out at the out. So this is the out over here next to the wheelie bins. So when this fills up, so if you can imagine the school car park, the exit driveway, this little section of Rosebank and the entrance driveway, that fills up with cars, doing a little circular caterpillar queue of an evening, waiting for the children to emerge from the school. So once that's full up, further cars then come up the hill through this single file section, but they can't go anywhere because the rotating caterpillar is in front of them. And so the proposal is, if we move this parking offline into a couple of laybys, then people can queue up the hill without obstructing people exiting to go down the hill. So at the moment, the queue, once it's formed up the hill through this single file section, prevents anybody from escaping from the caterpillar because they can't get past the parked vehicles. And so you end up with a logjam. And the head teacher, who is very courageous in doing this, has to go out and reverse people down the hill to allow people out of their pick-up and drop-off system. If we were to take the parking offline, people would be able to escape, even if the queue had formed up the hill. I hope that makes it clear. If not, we're kind of stumped because I can't think of a better way of explaining it.
I think that's very clear. Thank you.
That's very helpful, Chair. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions for Nick, please?
Councillor Kinkton.
Councillor Kinkton.
Yeah, thank you. There's a bit of a problem here because what you are saying is this is a really dangerous area and it needs to be resolved. But on the other hand, you don't want to resolve it because it will encourage more parking. Now, as a councillor, I have to say what's more important, actually making sure the children aren't in danger or the possibility of more cars coming. And that's a balance we have to make. Now, if we choose to say that actually removing the cars is more important because child safety is more important, the one option that was put before us was spending £42,000 on moving the bays into the area that is now EEBC land. And the comment you just recently made is because that would ensure that the local residents didn't lose a parking spot. And I think that's not unreasonable. Why should the local residents have to do this? However, if instead what you did is, and it's got double yellow lines, there were single yellow lines that were only operative from 8 o'clock to 9:30, and in the afternoon from whatever it is, 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock or whatever it is, surely that would resolve the issue of getting those cars out the way and ensuring child safety. And that would also ensure that those parking areas remained available to local residents, but obviously outside that. And the reason I think that's not unreasonable, for example, in my area, Highfield Drive has 2 one-hour slots throughout the day. The residents can't park outside their houses, but it stops a whole load of inconsiderate parking by commuters. So instead of spending £42,000 on creating extra bays, you could actually put a single yellow line that was time limited, like you have outside lots of schools. It would mean for that particular time, local residents couldn't park there, but it would actually not inconvenience them all day. But then it comes down, I fully understand, to this issue of what's more important, child safety or not encouraging travel to things. But I think that is an option, unless you tell me it isn't available, that needs to be considered by the committee. Thank you.
Tina, would you like me to come back on that?
Could I just make a comment about that?
Who is it speaking?
Steve Clavey.
Oh, I was just going to say maybe Stephen could also come in on this one as well. So shall we have Stephen first, Nick, and then?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
The current parking restrictions there for the residents operate 9:30 till 2:30 and 4:30 till 6:30. Now, this is currently allows school parents to be able to use those parking bays as a facility to drop kids off and pick them up. If we were to put a yellow line there that operated, say, as Councillor Kington suggested, up to 9:30, it essentially means that we're taking away those parking bays because they won't have anywhere to park as a priority or with a resident permit. They would end up moving down the road anyway. I don't know whether that makes sense, but also considering that there's a disabled resident there and the disabled parking bay is located as close to that resident's premises as possible, we'd then also be forcing them to move further down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Want me to come in now, Tina?
Yes, please.
The other thing I would add to Steve's comments on parking is that, of course, with a single yellow line, a disabled blue badge holder is perfectly entitled to park on it anyway. And so it wouldn't necessarily remove the single file section. There is still one car that we know of in the community that could still legitimately park there. Now, again, there are parking restrictions that could prevent that, but it's a case of how much we wish to penalise a disabled person in the community. Coming back on Eva's point as to whether it is a choice between safety of children or a philosophical ambition to achieve a sustainable transport future, there is another way, of course, and that is for the school not to allow parents to drive onto its grounds, which would then be in common with most other schools in the county, and that would prevent this circular queue from forming in the first place. So even if we were to remove that parking, the circular queue would still form and it would still circulate whilst children are trying to cross the road, and people would still queue up the hill while children are trying to cross the road. But what would then happen is that once children are able to be picked up, they could then escape more easily without the congestion, but they'd also be able to escape more quickly, and that would increase the danger to the children. And of course, if by encouraging people to drop off and pick up and to join this circular queue, then the more people who approach and join it, which is possible if we make it easier for them to do so, the more dangerous it becomes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any more questions for either Stephen or Nick? Nigel, could you put your hand down?
Councillor Dallin would like to speak, I think.
Okay. Councillor Dallin.
Thank you, Chair. It's not to ask questions so much as to make a comment, if that's appropriate. When I visited the headmistress now some time ago, the biggest problem was this disabled parking space causing a log jam. And I don't think it matters whether the school use their sort of parking area as a pick up and drop off, or if they stop doing that, it would just happen further up the road and even be a bigger problem. So it's the disabled space is the biggest problem. And I think we need to somehow resolve that. And it looks as if we have a resolution, albeit at £42,000. And again, my feeling is that the safety of the children is paramount. We ought to be encouraging or discouraging use of cars in all sorts of other ways, but not at the expense of safety of children.
Tina, would you like to come back on that?
Yes, please.
Only to reiterate that by encouraging more cars into the area, you will be making it more dangerous. And you know, whether you may or may not buy that argument, the single yellow line is probably worth also pointing out that if there was a single yellow line there, and if the residents were to obey it and to remove their vehicles for the curfew period, what would happen is that the school community would simply park on that single yellow line in their place, rather like they do outside every other school in the county.
Do you think that overcoming the problem would be just to ask the school not to open the school gates until collection time?
So from a purely technical point of view, and if I was to design this with a blank sheet of paper, taking into account the various different pressures, my recommendation would be for the school not to allow anybody to drive onto their premises to pick up or drop off their children. And if they were to take that step, I would be much more comfortable to recommend a lay-by so that single file section becomes two-way again. And I think that would be a good balance of easing that congestion up to the school gates, because there will always be some families that need to drop off by car. Some families are dropping off disabled children. Some families, by virtue of a hellishly busy family routine, and believe me, I've been there, just feel that they have no other choice. And so that I think would be a good balance. We don't want to encourage any more people up into that situation. We don't want to encourage the school to keep on running this circular queue. But I accept that single file section does cause issues.
Right, thank you. If there's nobody else that wants to discuss the only
Chairman, could I make another quick comment?
Oh, yes, of course.
Steve Clavey again.
Yes, hello, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if we close the access to the school, it makes me wonder where vehicles are going to turn around. The only option they then have is to go right up to the very end of Rosebank and probably create a bottleneck at the turning head that's there. So I do wonder what's going to happen with vehicles in that respect. Also, historically, we've got a very similar sort of scenario here in Rosebank that we have in Abelia Green at the moment, wherein the school is able to come up with a lot of signatures to object to proposals and the residents are not. Now, when we looked at originally putting in the residence permit scheme, it was going to operate all day, I think from 8 till 6. And as a consequence of the school sending in several hundred objections, we changed the times to the times that we've currently got, which effectively enables the parents to be able to use the residents' parking bays to pick up and drop off. Now, I've had several comments to say that what's happening is now residents are scared to go out of their houses because they know that they will get ticketed as opposed to parents, because parents are turning up ridiculously early to pick up their children and parking in the bays, and enforcement isn't really good enough. But when enforcement is there, it seems to be the homeowners who get ticketed because they're having to park on a yellow line because they can't get into the bays. I think there's lots of issues going on here, and I just wanted to give you that sort of as a bit of a historical thing. But also with regards to the disabled parking bay moving, you know, where are the options to move it? It's further uphill or downhill, which is going to make it difficult for a disabled resident to move anyway. And we have to bear in mind, as Nick said, that they can potentially park on a single or a double yellow line for up to 3 hours. So will they ever move? That's all.
Thank you. Yes, it is a very difficult problem. We have to consider the safety of the school, but we also, I believe quite strongly, that we also have to consider local residents. And I know that there are local children that go to St Joseph's, but it isn't. Children are at school for a limited period of time, but most residents live. They live in White Horse Drive, they live in Rosebank, they live on Abelia Green, and they're not moving. And I therefore feel that their views should be taken into consideration, and anything we can do to help them, particularly in Rosebank, we ought to look at. Now, I know we've got to make some decisions, and I know that Nick has suggested 2, 5 and 6, which is basically to help children walk to school or cycle to school safely. The only help that I can offer as the local county councillor is to say that whatever my finances are next year, and I have no idea what they are, or they will be, then I'm happy that that should be used in any way that we can agree towards implementing some of these. I hope some of them might have been implemented, because mine, as I said before, my entire budget has gone on trying to sort out the pavements on Rosebank. I'm sorry I can't do the roads as well, but it won't go that far. So I think making it safe for children to walk and cycle to school is the most important thing. And I've certainly always believed that. You know, we had the same thing, didn't we, around St Christopher's School, and I'm quite sure councillors, county councillors, have exactly the same thing around their local schools. So that is the only offer I can make. So if there are no other questions, I'm not quite sure which is... Sorry, yes?
Councillor Collins still got his hand up. I'm not sure if he's got another question. And Councillor Coley would like to speak.
Nigel, do you want to say anything?
Apologies. No, thank you, Chair.
And Councillor Coley, would you like to say something?
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to say that one of the largest primary schools in the country is right behind my house, Daintree Primary School, and I can say now that parents completely ignore single yellow lines, double yellow lines. They drive, as I saw this morning, they drive onto the school premises when they know they are not allowed to do so, and often they park in residents' driveways, which they are definitely not allowed to do so. So any of the solutions that incorporate some sort of enforcement would effectively require a permanent presence, and we know that's not possible. I completely support walking, cycling, carbon-free transport, and it's good to hear that there are kids who live locally that go to that school. And I just want to say, Nick, I take your point about parents with busy lives, but if your life is that busy that you have to drive your kids several miles to go to school, don't go to a school far away, is my view on that. I sympathise with parents who have disabled children or who have special educational needs. I think that definitely needs to be factored into the way we do things. But I walked and cycled to school all of my life. I was never driven to school, and I'm just astonished that we as a council would try and incorporate that kind of service into the way we do things. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It might surprise you to
Tina.
I used to cycle to school as well. Sorry, is that you, Jan?
Yes, could I just say a few words?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I have been up to this school, both ends, the green end and the up Rosebank. And yes, it does get money, but I did read the breakdown that was sent to us all of where these pupils are coming from. And thereby, I think, lies the issue. And it is solely with the school, because, as Councillor Coley has said, I walked with my children to school locally, or about a mile away, but that's what we did. My argument now is, surely it's in the hands of the school. The school should be saying to itself, do we or should we be allowing pupils coming from so far away like Ashted, Banstead and so forth, because there is no transport there. And then I was told, if I'm right, Chairman, was it that there was thoughts of a park and ride at the top of the by the Queen Stand, somewhere up there, and for them to come there, and then we were told, oh, it's too expensive. Well, my argument is, you shouldn't really be allowing your children because that's cars driving all over the downs and hither and thither. No, I really do feel that I'm not.
I'll leave the meeting.
Hello? Hello?
Somebody's gone.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, Jan, we can hear you.
Oh, sorry. So my feeling is I don't really want to spend a huge amount of money on providing things, but I would go along with a lot of the items the Nick has produced for safety, you know, for walking and cycling. But what Councillor Coley said is absolutely true. Please come down and see what happens in Daintree Road of a morning and afternoon. Unbelievable. But people have got to be taught, and I'm afraid if it means getting a ticket, that might be the way forward. But I do feel strongly that we shouldn't be moving a disabled bay anywhere at all. Those people live there. They've got a disabled bay for a reason, and therefore I feel against it. But my other feeling is I'm not convinced I would want my children to walk from Abelia Green all up the Dorking Road all the way down Whitehorse. No, it's this is a conundrum. But I think some of the things that have been brought forward by Nick to sort of help if you get for safety, yes, I would go along with that. But would it be? I haven't got the figures in front of me because I haven't got it online. But is that 42? That doesn't include the bay, does it? The parking bay. That would be on top, would be extra funding for that, would it be?
That would be extra funding.
Oh, gosh, which I probably think might take all next year's money. I'm not sure I want to spend the whole year's funding we have on one issue. So, yes, I'm in favour of Nick's support, supporting his ideas, but I really am not happy with moving any disabled bay, etc. And I think the school are at the centre of this, and I'm not saying they haven't helped, and as Eba said, they've worked towards things by reducing the times or adding on the times for leaving and arriving. Fine, but the conundrum is they're getting people all the way from Ashtead, Banstead and further, and really that's the issue, because if they were all in walking distance, this wouldn't be such an issue. It might be a few cars for people who are working, perhaps where they drop their children off and then carry on to their workplace. But this isn't the case in this one. I think that the school have got to work harder at resolving this. Anyway, that's all my views. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. If everybody's happy, I'll now...
Chairman, there's two more people. Councillor Dallin would like to speak again, and Councillor Beckett has his hand up.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Dallin, what would you like to say?
Thank you, Chair. I think we've got to accept that we are where we are. You can't tell people who are now already at St Joseph's School to change schools. We can discourage the future the future years coming in, but we can't get rid of the people that are already there. So we have to try and resolve this sensibly. I'm very happy to consider with other people changing the times of the residents' parking to allow the residents, because I'm here to support the residents as well as the school. Can we do a deal somehow with the school so that they stop cars parking on the land? We change the times so that the residents' parking is more appropriate for the residents, but then move the disabled parking into the lay-by. So we try and get a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, we're talking about Rosebank now.
We're talking about Rosebank, yes.
Yes.
Chairman, can I just say any changes in the parking in Rosebank would need to go into the next parking review? We can't agree that today.
Would it be possible, Neil, that as I'm the county councillor for this area, that you and I discuss this with Stephen Clavey and see what we can do to make things better for the local residents there?
Yes, I thought it was actually Bernie's, not yours, in Rosebank.
No, it's mine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very happy. But I think by resolving this disabled bay thing is key, as opposed to the park and ride from Abbey Lee.
Yes. So, shall we go back to the parking? Oh, sorry, John Beckett.
Councillor Beckett.
Sorry, John.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'd just like to pull back and remind everybody that last year we made the decision when we were looking at schemes and funding that we made the decision that we weren't going to add any future schemes onto the list, which is already very well populated, because of there isn't enough money to go round. If we do agree this today, just be mindful that the committee is then going to have to go back to all of the list of all of the other outstanding issues, and some of them are around other schools, and decide what we're going to have to postpone or drop or remove from the list to be able to accommodate and fund this. Thank you.
Absolutely, and as I've said, John, I'm quite happy that my highways funding for next year can go towards this. I've already put my funding this year to improve the pavements. And we don't know what the funding is. So when we know, maybe Councillor Healy, as one of the as part 2 of the recommendations, is that the Vice Chairman, Jan Mason, myself, and Nick Healy and Stephen Clavey can get together and decide what we can actually afford to do. There will be some things we can afford to do, and we can just prioritise them. So I think that would be a way forward. It's not committing the communal money, if you like, from the committee, but it's certainly committing my money. So I hope that will help make a decision. Shall we?
Councillor Bridger would like to speak.
Of course. Hello.
Hi. Just a question. Why don't we ask the school to pay for it? Because they're the ones they've got the issue. So, it's reasonable that they actually pay for it.
Councillor Bridger, when this first all blew up, Nick Healy, Stephen Clavey, and myself, we met with both the head teachers, and at one point they were refusing even to stagger collection and arrival times. They've moved forward a huge distance now. They have compromised, and I'm sure that there are many other ways forward where they can actually help themselves. But financially, I think it will be quite unlikely that they would contribute. But as I say, as the county councillor, I'm quite happy that my highways funding goes towards not changing parking, but certainly making sure that children can cycle, walk, be buggy, scoot to school safely. So we're not committing ourselves to the whole 42,000. We're just saying this is what we would like to be done, and however far the money goes, that's and if when we know exactly how much we've got next year, then maybe the committee might be minded to put some money towards it. But I also appreciate that we've all got schools in our area, and all schools are shouting for this, that, and the other, and I quite understand that you might not want to put your money, county councillors, towards it. So, if we may, shall we go back to the parking review? And
Chairman, can we agree the recommendations to this one first?
Oh, yes, it's just we haven't done number 10 yet. So,
well, I thought maybe we'd finish this one and then go back to...
Absolutely. So, the recommendations, I've just lost my place now, so you might have to just wait a moment. Oh, yes, here we are. Thank you. Right, if I could take you all back to page 119 and point 1, by reference to Annex A, prioritise options 2, 5 and 6 for implementation in a future financial year at an estimated cost of 42,000 or as much as we can afford next year. Do we agree that? Is there anybody not prepared to agree that? Please make themselves known now. Okay, Nicola, that is unanimous. Can part 2 of this authorise the area highway manager in consultation with the chairman, vice chairman and the relevant divisional member to undertake all necessary procedures to deliver the agreed programme? Well, we will within the confinements of our budget. Are we all agreed on that?
Chairman?
Yes.
Can I speak?
You may.
Yeah. I hear your offer and to help fund this, but I have to say I'm a little bit concerned about the wording. I voted for the first one to prioritise the options, and I'm assuming that means prioritising those options over the other options in the list, as opposed to prioritising these options over all the other ones that are in our general programme. Now, if I've got that right, hopefully that's what I voted for. So we're prioritising these ones over the numbers 1, 3, 4 and 7, not prioritising them over all the others in the package that we've got there. I'm assuming this second one says undertake all necessary procedures to deliver the agreed programmes. I'm assuming that means the ones that the whole committee, the programmes we've already agreed, and that we haven't necessarily, in this case, put this up higher than any others. It's not me got any vested interest. I don't think I've got any on the programme, but it's not, to me, I can make it read how I think it should be, but can someone please clarify what the point 1 is, what we're prioritising, and secondly, what we're authorising to happen. Thank you.
Well, Tina, would you like me to clarify?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
So what I've done with that first recommendation, Eva, and it is a very good question. So what I meant when I wrote that was to say prioritise options 2, 5 and 6 within this particular feasibility study over the other options within this feasibility study, but not to make them the absolute priority for the local committee. And that's why I wrote in a future financial year without being specific, because at this point in time, the local committee doesn't actually know at what point in the future it is going to have spare money to be able to deliver a scheme in Rosebank compared to the other schemes which are already in the programme, the greater programme, which we haven't yet delivered, which committee has already approved. And so you're absolutely right to highlight the programmes at the end of the second recommendation, because committee does have programmes of works which are already approved, and it was not my intention for this scheme to trump anything else that's already in the programme. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Officer, and thank you, Chairman. I'm sure the minute secretary here has made note of that.
Thank you, Nicola. If you would do that,
yes,
I would be
make that clear in a minute.
Thank you. So now we need to revert back to
Chair, before we go on, can I put forward another recommendation, please, that we look at option 3 and review the way to resolving that with the school and with the residents in mind, or words to that effect.
Do you have a seconder for that, Neil?
I haven't got a clue.
Does anyone want to second that?
I've got to work out what number 3 is. Oh, that's
the disabled space.
The disabled space.
But the top priority in the problem.
Well, I'm not happy about losing a disabled space, I must be honest.
No, I'm not suggesting we lose the disabled space. I'm suggesting that as a third recommendation, we document that you, myself and other appropriate people meet to see if we can find a compromise with the school and with the disabled space, and with resolving option 3, basically, the blockage at the school gates.
Okay, I'm happy to second that.
Thank you.
Sorry, I lost my place for a minute. Yes, I second that. So if we could please add that, Nicola.
If everyone's in agreement.
Does anybody object to that? That we look to see if we can sort the problem out at the school gates? I think everybody agrees with that. Okay. Right. We'll go back now. Has everybody finished on 11? We'll go back to number 10, to Stephen Clavy's report. And I'm going to ask each councillor to say yes or no. I think it's quite important, as it was insisted that this comes back to the committee. I think we should be quite open about it. So if I call your name out, will you say yes, you support the changes to parking, or no, you don't support the changes to parking in...
Chair, I think there are a number of things we need to vote on here, not just one.
Yeah, can we?
Well, we're supposed to be voting on whether we change the parking on St Margaret Drive, St Elizabeth Drive, White Horse Drive, Dudley Grove, Elm Grove. Are we not? This is what...
I think, Tina, if we do each map at a time, we've got one map for the Abelia Green roads and the other one's for the White House Drive roads.
Okay, have I got those? Please.
So if somebody wants to make a proposal to say either that you do or you don't want to agree to the proposals, and then you can vote on each option.
Okay. Shall I do that then? Shall I say I propose that we do not agree the changes to parking for St Margaret Drive and St Elizabeth Drive on Abelia Green? Have I got a seconder for that?
Me.
Oh, thank you, Jan. Then Councillor Steve Bridger, how do you vote, please?
For.
What, for the changes or not for the changes?
For.
Sorry?
For the changes.
So you're voting against my proposal then?
Yeah.
Councillor Alex Coley, are you voting for the proposal to not have the parking on St Margaret Drive and Elizabeth Drive, or are you voting for the parking?
For.
Councillor Nigel Collin.
For.
Councillor Neil Dallen.
For.
Councillor Debbie Monksfield. I think we might have lost her.
I don't think she's in the meeting.
Okay, sorry. Councillor Eva Kingston.
For not approving.
Thank you for being clear. County Councillor Jan Mason.
For not approving.
And County Councillor John Beckett.
For not approving.
Thank you. So we do not approve the any changes to the parking in St Margaret Drive or St Elizabeth Drive. May I now propose that we do not approve...
Can I just check there that... Was there someone who was voting against them? Was Councillor Bridger voting against your proposal?
Yes. Or? Councillor Bridger voted against. He wants the parking. But the other...
was there anybody else who wants the parking?
No. Obviously, we haven't got Councillor Monksfield and we haven't got Bernie Muir because she lives there.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to White Horse Drive, Dudley Grove, Elm Grove. I propose that we do not change the current parking conditions on these three roads, the main road and the two side roads. Do I have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Was that you, Nigel?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Bridger, how do you vote, please?
For.
Councillor Coley?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Collins, well, you were for because you seconded it. Councillor Dallen?
For.
Councillor Jan Mason?
For.
Councillor Eva Kingston?
For not approving.
Councillor John Beckett?
For not approving.
Thank you. So we have unanimously decided not... I'm so sorry about my dogs. We've unanimously decided not to change any of the parking in White Horse Drive, Dudley Grove or Elm Grove. It will remain as it is. Is that all right, Nicola?
Yes, that sounds fine.
Thank you. Could I please ask you to ask Councillor Muir to come back into the meeting?
Chairman, Councillor Dallin has got a declaration of interest that he'd like to put in the next item.
Okay. Have we got Councillor Muir back yet?
Not yet.
Okay. Shall we just wait a moment, if that's okay with everybody? Only because she is actually interested in this. Okay. Would you mind if we left this next appointment until she does actually join the meeting? There may be some sort of problem. Okay. And we go on to number 13. Oh, sorry, I've got to get. God, it's taken so long to do all that. Oh, there. 13.
Councillor Muir's back in the meeting now if you want to stick with her.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll go back to this one. We have to now have an appointment to Epsom Ewell Community Safety Partnership. And Councillor Dallin, you said you wanted to declare an interest?
Yes, if you look at the appointees, one of them is Chair of Environment and Safe Communities, which is me.
All right.
Thank you.
Both, can you? Thank you. I have had a request from Councillor Muir because she was actually elected to go on the committee last year and it was disbanded, and she would very much like to continue basically what she started. Is there anybody else who's interested in going on this committee?
Thank you, Chairman. I wish to nominate County Councillor John Beckett.
Okay.
I have a seconder in Councillor Jan Mason.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will nominate Councillor Muir. Is anybody prepared to second this? Oh, that's a surprise. Okay, well, John, congratulations. There's no point in voting because you're the only person that's been put forward. So we now go on to number 13. We have to make a decision made under delegated powers following the council meeting in March.
It's just to note the
we just have to
decisions that were made in place of the meeting in March. There's no decision required.
Are we all happy to agree that? Noted? Yes? No objections? Good. Decision tracker. I've got that on my thing. Okay. Is there anything anybody wanted to say about the local decision tracker? Most of them are complete, aren't they?
Could I ask how the proposals for phase 12 unpainted lines is getting? Do we still have Steve Clavey?
I hope so. Stephen, could you respond to that, please?
I'm still here.
Oh, yeah.
As usual, I'm on top of the contractors. I did get a phone call from one of them last week, and he has gone round and done a fair bit, apparently. So, as usual, it's getting there very, very slowly. I did manage to go out and spray quite a bit of it in temporarily, so hopefully the contractors are doing those permanently now. I'm aware that there are still a few locations, but everybody's having trouble with those. I've actually passed on some of my comments to Richard Chevalier at Epsom as well to see whether there's anything he can assist with. So we're still working to get them done, but it's a hard slog, I'm afraid. So I'm trying to keep on top of it, and we'll get them completed as soon as we're able to.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry we've got you here this afternoon when it is sunny outside and you could be going around with your spray can.
And he does
if the ground's even remotely wet, it won't stick though, so yeah.
Could I just ask, Chairman, I did raise it at the last meeting that we really shouldn't be expecting for Steve to go around doing it, because at the end of the day, this contractor, he must have some sort of contract from us, and to do it in a timely fashion. Well, timely isn't the word he seems to know or even adhere to. And I'm just getting annoyed that we are expecting Steve, who has to cover quite a large area, to do all of this, and then not only does he bring the plans forward to us for agreement, he then goes out on site and has to stick the old yellow paint down. I don't know why Surrey are continuing with this contractor. They're an absolute shower, and it hasn't been the first year that it's happened. It's happened in the past, and I don't know how Surrey can get out of this contract, but that's probably for another day.
Yes, I completely agree with you, and I think we need to thank Stephen for his incredible work.
Yes, yes.
And now John Beckett would like to speak, I believe.
And also
yes, thank you,
Neil
Chair.
Gallen, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do echo the comments made by Councillor Mason, and I believe that maybe we as a committee should be writing to Mr. Curl, letting him know about our dissatisfaction with the current contractor. Also, I mean, if Mr. Clavey can, if he send us an updated list of the gaps that are still outstanding, you know where I'm going with this, that we might be able to assist with getting those gaps filled. Thank you.
Is that okay?
Shall I just comment on that?
Absolutely, please.
Well, thank you all for your support. Obviously, like I said, the contractor did make contact with me last week, so I am going to have to go round and check what he has actually done before I can finalise the list that you were just talking about. I do have a current list, but if he's gone round and done a substantial amount of that, then obviously that list will reduce in size. Moving forward, though, it is something that we are discussing in the parking team. We had a team meeting the other day. I expressed my displeasure at having to continuously try and chase the contractors myself. I'm running out of excuses to give to people, and it is getting to the point where it is becoming slightly ridiculous. But moving forward, we are looking to, as part of the new contract, I believe, is to get a company, or get a current company, I'm not sure, involved in traffic management as well, so that they can put cones out, they can put notices out before the contractors actually turn up. I don't really know the ins and outs of it at the moment. It's in its early stages, but it is something that we will be working towards.
That sounds wonderful. In light of that, does the committee still want me to write to Mr. Curl?
I would think that's a good suggestion, Chairman.
Okay, I will so do. Is everybody agreed that I should? Please say not, if not. I'm so sorry, Neil. Did you want to speak?
I'm not sure if it's this item or the next item. My computer's frozen, so I can't find out. There's one where number 1 is to do with Waterloo Road. Is that this item or the next item?
Minute Station Approach, Pound Lane, Waterloo Road, yes. Due to be completed in September 2020.
Right, it has been finished, but I don't believe it's been completed. There's puddles on all the new pavement, and there's flooding where the crossing is with the drop curb all the way across the road in Horsley Close, which is the new crossing which they've moved forward.
Nick Healy, could we ask you to look into that? Are you still with us? No.
Yes.
Oh.
There's a lot of buttons I had to press there just to say yes, but yes.
Thank you. Is that all right, Councillor Dallin? Nick's going to look into that.
Yes, that's fine, thank you.
So we'll keep that actually on the tracker. And would it be all right, everything else that is complete, that I have it removed? Unless I hear to the contrary, I will consider that you've all said yes. And I haven't heard to the contrary. even though there are lots of buttons to press. Good. So, Nicola, could we remove all those? That just leaves the three references on our tracker.
Yes, that's fine.
Lovely, thank you. Now we go on to the forward programme. Do we have any? We've got the parking review coming up on the 7th of December, and also the highway budget. Oh, that'll be fun. Is there anything else that we want to consider?
Chairman, could I just ask if it's been resolved, because it isn't at the moment, but the Surrey Fire and Rescue issues.
I'm so sorry, we're not allowed to discuss that at this meeting. We've all
not at the next one, you mean? That's what I'm talking about. You said, did we want to discuss anything at the next meeting? That would be December. And I was only thinking, if this had been resolved, the issues, by then, would it be possible to have a debate or an update? You know, let us air our views, perhaps, if that's possible in December.
I will ask for an update. I don't know whether it's possible. I'm very sorry, but I'll have to take advice on that. But I do assure you, if it is possible, then I will ask Nicola to include it. Is that all right?
Thank you.
You already asked for an update at the previous informal meeting, so I'm looking into that at the moment.
Yes.
And we'll hopefully have that. Well, depending. I mean, if we do decide that we're going to have another informal meeting, it might be that we have it there. If not, it will be at the next formal meeting, which is the 7th of December.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Just a moment. So the date of the next meeting is the 7th of December, and if anybody would like an informal meeting before that date, if you could please liaise with either Nicola or myself. If you want, Councillor Kinkton said he wanted a couple of days to think about it, then yes, please let us know. And it just leaves me to thank Stephen Clavey and Nick Healy for their incredible presentations. You know, an awful lot of work's gone into that, and I thank you very much. And I now close this meeting.
Thank you.